Last episode was Biodome, and now we move on to North. Yippee.
The one thing that we cannot control in this life is who our parents are. You dealt the hand, you're stuck with it.
Pants, that's what I know. I know pants. All kinds of pants.
Please.
All kinds of pants.
Dad, let me tell you something. Mom?
It's not like baseball, where if you don't like the deal you have with one team, you can become a free agent and try to get a better deal with another team.
Free agency.
If you want my advice, go home, make up, and goodbye.
What a scoop! I keep becoming a free agent, then going around offering his services as a devoted son to the highest bidding set of parents. I'm proud of you, kid. You got a lawyer?
Let's get cracking.
If he is not physically in the arms of either his new parents or his original parents by noon on Labor Day, he will be remanded to an orphanage. And if any of you has ever seen The Little Rascals, you know that's no day at the beach.
Hang in there, kid. You'll find what you're looking for.
Hey, it's you.
Trust me, I'm not me.
What are you? Some kind of guardian angel?
An Easter Bunny.
So I kind of mentioned this one in a previous video. It was when I was talking about The Dilemma, and I was talking about how Ron Howard has done a fair share of good movies, as well as some bad ones. I brought up how good directors can go on to do really shit films, and I brought up how Francis Ford Coppola did Jack in 1996, and of course, we got North in 1994. North, played by Elijah Wood, is a talented and bright kid, but his mom and dad, played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Jason Alexander, are utterly preoccupied with other things in their lives, leaving him largely ignored. Advised by a mysterious man, played by Bruce Willis, who pops up on occasion, North decides to legally separate himself from his parents and go on a search across the globe for his ideal mother and father. Unfortunately for the young boy, most of the people that he meets have very little potential. This movie was directed and produced by Rob Reiner, who, I'm going to say right now, he's had a hand in some things that I liked. I mean, he's definitely produced some funny movies over the years. He helped produce The Princess Bride and Spinal Tap, and his studio, Castle Rock, was responsible for bringing one of the greatest animes to the 90s with Seinfeld. But as a person, Rob Reiner always kind of struck me as kind of arrogant and full of himself. And I've talked about that a couple of other videos I've done. I mean, Alec Baldwin, when I brought him up in the Cat in the Hat review that I did, you know what? Very talented guy. Massive asshole, though. Another example of that for me is Tom Cruise. Very talented guy, been in a lot of great movies throughout the years. Seems like an absolute asshole, though. Putting my opinions on Rob Reiner aside, like I said, he's made some movies that I liked, he's been involved with stuff that I liked, but I kept hearing how much of a giant piece of shit this movie was, and needless to say, I got curious, and so, considering it seems to be regarded in a lot of circles as one of the worst movies ever made, I thought it'd be appropriate to talk about it for Blockbusters show. I gotta say, not since any of the Happy Madison movies that we've talked about on this show have I seen such a cavalcade of talented people being in such a lousy movie. So the basic setup is it's about a 9-year-old boy who is loved by everyone in his town except for his parents. His parents are a couple of whiny assholes, which, I mean, they're played by people who are good at playing those type of characters. His parents are Jason Alexander and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yes, North was having a difficult time with his folks, and it was putting a damper on what was, in all other respects, a very successful life.
I mean, to be fair, if you were in that same situation, you'd probably want to leave your parents too, knowing that you were the offspring of Elaine Bennis and George Costanza. Oh yeah, North is played by a young Elijah Wood. Long before his career of being in Lord of the Rings and producing a bunch of quirky, kind of independently made movies. So yeah, North is loved by everyone. He seems like a child prodigy. They have a whole montage showing parents saying that, oh, North is such a perfect kid, I wish my kids were more like North.
North's room is always clean.
North always looks both ways. North never spoils his appetite.
North flosses.
North's parents don't seem to realize how good they have it, despite all the other parents telling them they have a godsend of a child. So North goes to his secret spot, which is like this little living room display in like some like Macy's type store. He plops down on this big comfy seat, and then Bruce Willis shows up in a bunny suit, and I forgot to mention he was also narrating the opening, because all throughout this movie, Bruce Willis basically plays the guardian angel type character from like It's a Wonderful Life or movies like this. He shows up every so often to drop some wisdom, kick some knowledge, and he's pretty much there to help the kid get out of tightened situations, but that's all throughout the movie. But Bruce Willis in a bunny costume goes to North very early on and tells him, you know, oh, well, why don't you just leave your current situation? So North decides that he's basically going to divorce his parents. And he takes this to some kid that works at the local school newspaper who looks... The kid dresses like one of those old newspaper factory mill workers from like the 30s and 40s, complete with like suspenders and big glasses and like one of those like visor hats.
What a scoop! A kid becoming a free agent, then going around offering his services as a devoted son to the highest bidding set of parents. It's brilliant, North! Mwah! Simply brilliant!
I would love to believe that that kid is actually in his own quirky comedy where he's like an 80 or 90-year-old stuck in a little boy's body. Like he has Benjamin Button syndrome or something. I would love to believe that that's the case. On halfway through the movie, that kid becomes the villain. I don't know. For some reason, he teams up with North's lawyer when he divorces his parents, and the lawyer is played by John Lovitz.
As we speak, grown-ups across this great land of ours are feeling humiliated. They blame North for all their frustrations. Do you realize how many of those angry parents would like nothing better than to do away with our little friend?
And lawyer John Lovitz helps North divorce his family in a courtroom with a judge played by Alan Arkin.
No doubt you'll all be hearing the same things that I am hearing. That's your privilege. However, once both sides have been heard, then it'll be my job to pass judgment. Obviously, you can all pass judgment too, but it won't count. That's because I am the one who is the judge. Have I made myself clear to the plaintiff?
Just wait a couple of years, Alan Arkin. You'll get to be in a kind of better movie with Burt Wonderstone. So they come to the agreement that North has all summer long to try and find a new family, and if he can't find one, then he'll be put into foster care or an orphanage or something like that. And so this then begins the film's non-stop bombardment of celebrity cameos and racial stereotypes. Like I've said before, this channel's not really the PC police. You know, when edgy comedy is done really well, it can be done very well. Unfortunately, this is supposed to be a quirky family comedy, and oh my god. I gotta say, man, this is up there with Under the Rainbow and that weird Mexican Santa Claus movie from the 60s in terms of how stereotypical everything is. I mean, this movie is an equal opportunity offender. It goes after everyone. You got Africans living in grass huts, the people of China worshiping this kid like he's some kind of emperor or something. French people smoking, drinking wine, wearing berets, and laughing at Jerry Lewis. There's a part where he's going to get picked up by an Amish family, but they take off immediately because of how unsatisfying it looks.
I am thy new father, and this good woman who art my wife art thy new mother. And these are thy new brothers who art named Ezekiel. And these are thy new brothers who art named Art.
Just let me grab something from the plane. I seem to have left my butter churn in the overhead compartment. Floor it!
I mean, I guess we could all take comfort in the fact that that same year Kingpin came out, so we got some better Amish comedy out of that. But the four main families that they put a lot of focus on are as follows. The first is this wealthy Texan family that, of course, they're cowboys, they eat a lot, and they have some kind of oil company, probably. And they're played by Dan Aykroyd and Reba McEntire. As soon as they made it on screen and they were doing these like obnoxiously exaggerated Southern accents. I mean, yeah, I know Reba McEntire is actually Southern in real life, but they're playing like the exaggerated like yeehaw and howdy partner. Like they're exaggerated cowboy characters. Like Reba McEntire was in Tremors 4 years before this, and it's like, oh man, I just felt sorry for her. And Dan Aykroyd, I mean, granted, his career kind of slowly tapered off, and I mean, Nothing But Trouble was probably around the corner at that point, but I mean, Dan Aykroyd, you were in Blues Brothers and Ghostbusters. And how? Why were you guys in this?
Ready, Paul?
Ready, Ma?
We had a son who was trampled by a ton of longhorns, but you're here cutes to fill his boots as flat as they may be.
You'll yell yippee-i-o at the rodeo till the day's done.
Then you'll make a lot of pals with buffalo gals.
Just leave some for me.
Hey there!
While they seem to have that southern hospitality at first, North is driven away from them because they're trying to fatten him up, just like they did with their last son, who, comedically enough, they have this like 30-second build-up to a punchline where they say that he died in a stampede.
Then you'll be like Buck.
Who?
Our first son. Biggest boy this big state's ever seen. Why, he could eat more in one day than anyone else could eat in a whole month.
That's why Buck hated February.
Where is Buck?
He died in a stampede.
It was at this point, all throughout the movie, I just kept going, is that a joke? Like, is it? Like, so half the time they say things and like, you know, they have like lots of build up and then like, you're like, oh, I think that's a punchline, but it's not funny. And there's so many times where they do shit like that. That's kind of the main problem with this movie. It's a screwball comedy, no dissimilar to something like Under the Rainbow, which came out in the late 80s, and this came out in the early 90s. And screwball comedies were kind of a big thing in like, I don't know, probably the like late 40s maybe. And I want to say screwball comedies like this kind of tapered off like by the end of the 90s. And I mean, like, some of the best examples of screwball comedies are obviously like some of the early Zucker Brothers movies from the 80s. I mean, you look at like Hot Shots and Naked Gun and Airplane and Top Secret. That's another one. It's a really underrated one. Movies like that, they have like, they're basically like watching live action cartoons. They have such outlandish things and they feel like I said, live action Looney Tunes cartoons. They have such bizarre things. Like in Hot Shots, you have it that like, you know, they're parodying a scene from Rambo and they're like shooting in a forest and they shoot a tree and then the tree gets shot and the tree goes, ugh, and then falls over. And then when they do shit like that in this movie, you're just like, fucking really? Like, really? Like, they really thought that was funny? Like, and it's because they do it multiple times and none of the times they do it, it's funny. Like, one of the running gags they have is that North's parents are comatose and then eventually you see that, like, they're put into a museum. Like, they're just like propped up comatose and everyone like gathers to look at them like they're a display and it's like,
ladies and gentlemen, North's folks.
the next family that North is going to try and stay with is the governor of Hawaii. And the reason that they want to adopt him is because the governor's wife can't have kids. And it's interesting because I found this out while watching the movie. I looked up the cast because I knew when I started hearing that actress talk, I knew I recognized her from something. Of course I recognized her voice because she's been in a lot of stuff. She was Amy in Futurama. She was Jinx in Teen Titans. And comedically enough, she was Kooky Sandban, aka number 3 from Kids Next Door. So, yeah, just like everyone else that's in this movie, it's good to know she was at least in better things after this shit.
Hawaii is a lush and fertile land. In fact, there's only one barren area on all of our islands. Unfortunately, it's Mrs. Hole.
The reason that North wants to leave this family is because he's the governor of Hawaii, and they think that having North on a billboard will bring in traction. But it's not just a billboard of North, it's a billboard of North's butt. Like in a parody of one of those old, like, what do you call it? In a parody of one of those old, like, sunscreen ads where it's like the little girl and the dog is like biting the underwear, revealing, like, that was just really uncomfortable.
What is that?
Son, that'll be in every airport, along every highway.
My crack? My crack is going to be shown at every airport?
Now, son.
What gives you the right to show my crack in every highway?
And again, I just sat there and was like, that's supposed to be the joke. Because him being freaked out by that, totally reasonable. Next family he goes to stay with is in Alaska, and of course, they all live in igloos. And at first I was like, oh, hey, you know, they actually have someone who is an Inuit, like, playing his adoptive father. It's like, okay. And then Kathy Bates steps in Eskimo face, and I was just like, holy shit.
Here you go, North.
nice cup of hot cocoa. And to go with that, our state dish, Eskimo pie.
Now, I would say this movie would probably end up on the banned list, but that's implying someone would actually want to dig through a catacomb to dig out North and watch it again. Also, they whistle the Andy Griffith theme. And if you thought Good Burger was the lowest that Abe Vigoda could sink, shit, man, you ain't seen nothing yet, because he plays an elder of theirs who they decide to set adrift to die. And it was at this point where, again, I was like, okay, I see they're trying to make a joke. And because it really was like a Zucker Brothers movie setup where you have it that there's a guy taking tickets for them to put all their older people in their community onto ice floes and set them adrift. And then you see like they have like coffee tables to put books, and they have like lounge chairs and TVs.
Are you sure you have to go?
Oh, don't worry about him, North. He's had a great life, and he's happy to set sail before he starts embarrassing himself.
Yeah, take it from us, North. When drool hardens, it's not a pretty sight.
But, come on, let's go, pal. This is no surprise to you, is it? You know where you're going. Take a walk. Come on, let's go. Move it along. Let's go.
It's like the joke about, you know, the fat son of the Texan family that died in a stampede. It's like, this is a joke about people dying. That's... this is supposed to be a family movie? What the fuck? After a montage of more stereotypes, we finally come across this like picture-perfect family, including a father played by John Ritter and a youngest daughter played by Scarlett Johansson. Yep, long before Marvel movies and Lost in Translation and the SpongeBob movie started in North. And the thing is, the movie doesn't even have a proper reason for why North doesn't want to stay with them. Like, they're not portrayed as like creepy or weird or anything like that. No, they're just a perfectly normal family, white picket fence. They have barbecues and sit out together on the back porch. And it's like they're all friendly. They get along with one another. And you know, it's funny because in the next scene, when North decides he wants to leave them, he literally says like, I don't know, when they ask him why he wants to go.
North, we just don't understand why you're leaving.
Neither do I.
I gotta tell you, man, the last act of this movie is when everything goes balls to the wall because, okay, they established that newspaper kid, the kid that dresses like an old man, and lawyer John Lovitz basically become evil, and the kid has a hitman put out for North, and he even like prints in newspapers that North is gonna die or is dead or something like that, and North gets chased by a group of kids from his like neighborhood. Because another little story beat was the kids in North's neighborhood started holding leverage over their parents because, you know, at the beginning, the parents were bitching at their kids for not being like North. And then when they saw that North was leaving his parents, these kids decide they're going to try and hold that kind of leverage over their parents. So now their parents have to do everything for them so that their kids won't divorce them. It's incredibly stupid, I know. As those kids find out that North is going to try and get back with his parents, they then try to chase North down and kill him, but then he gets rescued by Magic Bruce Willis in a FedEx product placement.
What are you? Some kind of guardian angel?
Well, I guess you can say that. Because in a manner of speaking, we at Federal Express feel that we are guardians. Guardians of your most important packages and priority communiques.
Yeah.
Also, in fairness, I will say this. The one thing I laughed at in this whole movie was Bruce Willis saying this line.
And remember, kid, if you can't stand the heat, stay out of Miami.
Well, what does that metaphor mean?
What metaphor? You ever been down there in August? Your balls stick to your leg like crazy glue.
No, I know it's incredibly inappropriate for a kid's movie, but considering the jokes about death and all the stereotypes that are in this thing, I was like, fuck it, man. It got a chuckle out of me. I'll take it. Trying to find a joke to laugh at in this movie is like trying to find water in a desert. It's impossible. And then like maybe like 50 miles down the road, you come across like this little thimble full of water and you're like, I'll take it. Parents show up at that furniture store that's, you know, North's secret hiding place from the beginning of the movie. And the judge is there and he has like a clock for like a countdown timer as a, you know, literal ticking clock element. The hitman shows up, he's about ready to shoot North, and then it was all a dream. Because North wakes up, the entire movie was a dream.
still here?
Yeah.
So, was Bruce Willis magic? It's one of those kind of things. It's like, so was it magic? Did it really happen? Or was it just a dream? Who knows? Who cares? The movie's almost over. And so Bruce Willis drives the kid home, and North hugs his parents, and God, fuck, this movie sucked so hard. I gotta say, man, this movie, along with some of the other ones that we've done earlier this year, and, you know, probably near the end of last year too, this really does show that sometimes the worst movies to do videos on are the comedies. Because say you have a really poorly put together drama, or a poorly put together thriller, poorly put together horror movie, action movie. Those movies are so incompetent, you could probably laugh at how bad they are. When it comes to comedies, and obviously, yes, comedy is subjective, but watching movies where you're just not laughing, that is one of the worst experiences when it comes to like reviewing movies online. And that's definitely how I felt here. I mean, shit, this is really up there with Biodome and Under the Rainbow. Those two especially, because it has like that 90s factor that was in Biodome, except it's not as annoying as in Biodome, but it has like that, it feels like it was trying to be like a John Hughes movie, you know, because those can be kind of cartoonish and over the top, but they also had a heart to them as well. But the thing is, John Hughes movies, when they were good, they were really good. And the first Home Alone, I still stand by what I say, the first Home Alone is definitely a really good example of how to do these kind of things. Shit, man, I would rather watch Richie Rich 5 times before looking at a single frame of this movie again. I also compare it to Under the Rainbow because it has like that really try-hard, offensive humor. But it's even, I'd say it's even more uncomfortable than Under the Rainbow, because Under the Rainbow, yeah, you could say it was un-PC and it was really poor taste. But at least that movie, I guess, was made for adults or older audiences. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I joked about it earlier, but considering how, you know, everyone wants to pick apart things for being, you know, uncouth and unpolitically correct and not with the times, part of me wonders if Rob Reiner looks back on this and thinks, wow, yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. I kept thinking so many different things while watching this, like, how did any of these actors agree to be in this? I also kept thinking, wow, I don't think I've been this pissed off at an alleged family movie since, like, Garbage Pail Kids. It's that bad. It's like, wow, this fucking sucks so hard. The thing that actually kept me watching the movie was, like I always do, I try to watch the trailer before I watch the movie itself to try and see if the movie seems like it could be a worthy candidate on doing a video on. But after I watched the trailer, I also saw the rather infamous review that Siskel and Ebert did, and watching the footage for that one, they were pissed. Like, even more so than any other movie they've done before.
A movie that makes me cringe even when I'm sitting here thinking about it. I hated this movie as much as any movie we've ever reviewed in the 19 years we've been doing this show.
It's embarrassing. You feel unclean as you're sitting there. It's junk. First-class junk.
And that review kind of kept me going. Okay, so thankfully next time it's not going to be a crappy family movie or a crappy comedy like this one was. Instead, we're going to be looking at a crappy action movie. Sadly, though, it's not a cheesy action movie from like the 80s or 90s. Instead, it's going to be one that came out, I guess, relatively recently. It came out in 2013. It's, you know, it's more recent than, you know, those other 2 decades. It's basically like if you try to combine like a Fast and the Furious movie with Taken and stuff like that. It's called Getaway, and it stars Ethan Hawke and Selena Gomez. So look forward to that next time on the Blockbuster Show. Until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video. And yeah, seriously, North, fuck this movie.
What's the matter? Hey, loosen his pants.